Thank you. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming out today to our annual general meeting, our 32nd annual general meeting. And we're calling the meeting to order. And welcome to our officers. Welcome to members of the PSOJ. And I would like to specially acknowledge the two past presidents, Mr. Howard Mitchell and Mr. Christopher Zaka. These two gentlemen have been of great support to me over this year, holding me to account, and we know Howard already, and keeping me on track, providing me with input and guidance and support. And I really do appreciate it, and I thank you, gentlemen, for your continued support. So I really have to acknowledge you guys, and thank you. And it is Howard Mitchell, why I'm here today, who engaged me and asked me if I would serve. And after some deliberation and some prodding, and me kind of trying to push him back and say, no, Howard, you go again, man, you go again. And he said, no, Keith, it's time to step up. You know what I mean? So I took on the responsibility. I must say it has been a very challenging year, but one which I've enjoyed. It has been intense, but I've enjoyed the partnerships that we have built over the year. I've enjoyed working as a team with everyone, and so I'd just like to thank you. I'd like to thank Greta Bogues for her hard work. Greta is really such a perfectionist. And the Secretariat for their efforts also. So, you know, I'm not a man for the protocols, outside of COVID protocols, right? Okay. So I'm going to ask Greta, by a show of hands in favor, Greta, give him a paper to read. By a show of hands in favor of Greta Bogues' election as chairman of the meeting, by a show of hands, please. Thank you, and I'll hand over to Greta. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, members, good afternoon. I will now ask you all please to stand for our national anthem as we begin our annual general meeting. Please remain standing as I invite our PR and Marketing Manager, Cloleen Daly-Mushet, to say the prayers.
Let us pray. Our most righteous and heavenly Father, we come to you this afternoon as members of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica. We ask for your blessing and help as we are gathered together for our 32nd annual general meeting. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you clearly show us how to carry out your work for another year with a spirit of joy and purpose. We ask for you to give us a desire and the strength to find ways to excel and more importantly, that the work that we do is reflective of your will to make Jamaica a better place. For this and other mercies we ask, amen.
We ask that you remain standing. As many of you may recall, the past year, we have lost 3 of our stalwarts at the PSOJ. We have lost Beverly Lopez, past president. We have lost Oliver Clark, past president and also a member of the Hall of Fame. And we have lost Anthony Hart. So we're all asking you for a moment of silence for our 3 stalwarts. May their souls rest in peace and light perpetually shine upon them. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon again. I want to welcome you all this evening to our 32nd Annual General Meeting. I want to especially welcome those who are joining us for the very first time, attending their first meeting. And probably I could ask them to stand. I know there's Jason, definitely. Is there anyone else? Richard Edge. Oh my gosh. Please give them a round of applause. We're so delighted that you could be here to join us. We of course want to extend a very special welcome to 2 new presidents just recently appointed. And the first one is Oliver Tomlinson. Oliver is here. I thought I saw Oliver. Oliver Tomlinson, newly appointed Insurance Association of Jamaica president, and also William Brown. Thank you very much, William. New president, Shipping Association of Jamaica. I also want to extend a special welcome, of course, to our auditors, very important persons. And we have with us this afternoon Sharon Thomas Brown, who has been working with us assiduously. Welcome, Sharon, who also represents KPMG. And then there are a number of specially invited guests that we have, and some of them are streaming, and we're going to talk about the streaming after, but they are mostly our multilateral partners who have really been working with us assiduously throughout the year. I then want to extend a very special welcome to Tracy Campbell from PricewaterhouseCoopers. Tracy and Pricewaterhouse is a member of the PSOJ, and Tracy decided that she would actually do the minutes for us. So we're very grateful, Tracy, and we thank you very, very much. Of course, a special welcome to all our officers. Of course, we have our vice presidents, Jackie Sharp, Jeffrey Hall, Mario McIntosh Robinson, and of course, our hardworking treasurer and secretary, Vikram, and Eva Lewis. And then you know the hub of the PSOJ is our chairpersons. So I also want to extend a very special welcome to our chairpersons. Can you please stand and be recognized? These are the hard-working persons. George Overton, Chris Record, Eleanor Jones, welcome. And Sandra Glasgow. Sandra actually leads the Crime Stop project, which you'll hear a little about later this evening. So let me again, on behalf of the President, the officers, welcome you all again to our 32nd Annual General Meeting. I will now ask the Honorary Secretary, to indicate the notice for convening of the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A notice convening the 32nd Annual General Meeting was circulated. May we have a motion to confirm that the notice be taken as read? So noted, Mrs. Facey, seconded by Mr. Record. Thank you very much.
Madam Secretary, please advise, do we have a quorum in place to convene the meeting?
We do have a quorum in place. As per our articles, we have more than 30 members present here today.
And we should just know that our membership now stands at 305. As at the 30th of November, we have 26 associations, 74 individuals, and 205 corporate members. Apologies for absences, Madam Secretary.
We have apologies from Victoria Mutual Building Society, Mr. Courtney Campbell, and JN Group, Earl Jarrett. We have apologies from the individuals, Mr. Christopher Babel, Dene Ramgolam, Mr. Roy Barnasy, and Ms. Kelisha Shaw.
Thank you very much. So we are duly constituted for an annual general meeting. Now, members, you would have received with your notice of the meeting an agenda that outlines the business we intend to transact at this meeting. Ordinarily, we would have proceeded in a particular order, and the resolution tabled would be taken after the President's report. But friends, as you all know, we are in unusual times. As such, we are proposing to change the running order by moving aspects of item 13 and 16 and item 15 up front. This includes moving the business of voting on some of the various resolutions set out in the notice to the beginning of the meeting to facilitate members being able to vote on these early, and if any member so wishes to leave, they may do so. This is being proposed in the interest of those members who would prefer not to be in the room for any extended period. Is there any objection to this? Anyone has any objection? I don't even see the nodding on the heads. Yes? No? I assume no one has any objection. There being no objection, let us proceed with that revised running order. The minutes of the annual general meeting were circulated, and the meeting was held on Monday, September the 23rd, 2019. These minutes are being taken as read. Are there any amendments to the minutes? The minutes were circulated. We can go page by page, but anybody had any amendments to the minutes? Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and page 5. Are there any amendments to the minutes? If there are no amendments, then may I have someone moved for the approval of the minutes? Can someone from the floor propose a motion for the approval of the minutes? Thank you very much, George. And can we have someone second? Thank you very much, Winsome. Matters arising from the minutes. Are there any matters arising from the minutes that any member would like to raise at this time? I do believe a number of the items, however, will be captured within the context of the President's presentation. We will now move to the election of new council members. And in this regard, I now ask the Secretary to lead us through this process. So in terms of the order in which the resolutions that we have tabled will be posed, we will start with resolution number 3 in the notice of the meeting. And that resolution states, with regard to the election of officers. Please, however, note that there was an error in the numbering sequence, and so what appears to be a separate resolution number 4 on the notice of the meeting is actually resolution 3. That is, that such number as required by the Articles of Association of persons duly nominated by the members being able and willing to serve be hereby elected as members of the council. The list of members is set out in the notice of the meeting. And I'll now ask the Secretary to take us through the process.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As the chair noted, we received up to 4 p.m. on Tuesday, November 17th, 14 days prior to the AGM, the nominations for election to council. Today's voting will take place in two categories, the categories of corporate and association, plus we also have a special announcement on the individuals. You would have received in your packages an indication that the nominations for corporate, of which there will be 12 persons nominated to council from the nominations. The nominations for corporate are Bank of Nova Scotia Jamaica Limited, City, Continental Baking Company Limited, Quartz Jamaica Limited, Chukka Caribbean Adventures, C&W Business, Digicel Jamaica, Grace Kennedy Limited, Jamaica Money Market Brokers Limited, Jamaica Producers Group Limited, Jamaica Public Service Limited, JN General Insurance Company Limited, Musson Jamaica Limited, Rainforest Seafoods Limited, Red Stripe Company Limited, Sagicor Group Jamaica Limited, Seprod Limited, and Wisinco Group Limited. So this is the list for the corporate nominations. The nominations with respect to associations will be as follows, or have been as follows. The Business Processing Industry Association of Jamaica, Council of Voluntary Social Service, Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica, Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica, Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League, Jamaica Customer Service Association, Jamaica Developers Association, Jamaica Used Cars Dealers Association, Medical Association of Jamaica, the MSME Alliance, Small Business Association of Jamaica, Sugar Manufacturing Corporation of Jamaica, and finally, the United Way of Jamaica. We need members to vote for 10 corporate members out of the 18 nominations that I called prior to this last set, and we need a total of 12 nominations from the association or the 13 association memberships or nominations that I so mentioned. So we can begin. I believe we are going to be having an electronic voting process. Beginning, you should have on registration received a text so that you can go straight to your phones and begin the process. As a reminder, we need 10 corporate nominations from the list I provided, and I think they should be up on the screen, and 13 nominations for our, 12 votes for the associations.
And just to remind everyone that you have to vote in the category membership that you fall. So for members of corporates, you can only vote in that category, and associations can only vote in that category. With regard to individuals, we actually received nominations for 2 individuals, and the 2 individuals were Chris Record and Jason Hensel. We only had 2 spaces, so we do not need to vote for individuals. So we congratulate Chris and Jason, who have now been elected to council.
To the connection? It's not getting in.
Not found? Yeah. Yeah, check from your email. But what we're doing is that we're opening the voting process for now, and it will be closed after the annual report. So it's giving persons the opportunity to, if you can't get through electronically, we do have the paper ballots that are available as a backup. And there is enough time for everybody to vote. Okay? Everybody clear? Everybody comfortable? Thank you very much. If you're having any problems, Tracy will assist. So we'll now move on to the special resolutions. As you would have noticed in your notice for the annual general meeting, there were special resolutions that were submitted. And the special resolutions dealing with the adoption of new articles of incorporation for the PSOJ. It actually proposes that the new articles of incorporation will replace the existing memorandum of articles association, and articles of association. The full text of the proposed new articles were circulated to you, along with an explanatory summary for your convenience of the key changes that are proposed to be made. We also wish to advise that we have sought the approval from the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce for the adoption of the proposed articles. And I'm extremely delighted to say that 60 minutes ago, we received a letter signed by the minister with his approval, which is subject to an alteration on the memorandum of association to item 6, schedule 1. So that item should read now, no alteration or amendment shall be made to the articles of incorporation unless the same shall have been previously submitted to and approved by the minister. So I think some of our members might ask, so why did we have to go to the minister? And the minister's approval is required because the PSOJ holds a special license from the minister to allow it not to use the name limited. This license is granted where the minister is satisfied that the company is a not-for-profit organization like the PSOJ, and that the company's articles meet certain conditions. None of the changes proposed will affect the company's status and eligibility to continue to hold this license. So I will now read the resolution that was circulated. Whereas the organization has reviewed its constitutive documents and found that certain provisions should be revised, including that of the limit on the number of members be increased from 450 to 5,000. The maximum number of vice presidents should be increased from 3 to 5. Provision to be made for electronic meetings of the organization, the officers, the executive committee, and council, along with electronic voting. That voting by proxy be permitted. That overseas members be entitled to vote and to have one seat on the council. And that provision be made for an honorary legal counsel. Whereas the organization desires to adopt articles of incorporation in lieu of memorandum of association and articles of association in accordance with the Companies Act 2004. Whereas other suitable changes are desired to be made to the constitutive documents, the members are asked to consider and, if thought fit, pass the following resolution. That the Memorandum of Association and Articles of Association of the organization be amended by deleting each in its current form and adopting the form of Articles of Incorporation comprising Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, accompanying the notice of the annual general meeting, which was previously circulated to members, subject to such amendments that may be required by the Minister of Commerce, and that the form of articles of incorporation so amended be adopted in replacement and substitution for the existing memorandum of association and articles of association of the organization. The resolution has been read. May I have a motion for the acceptance and approval of this special resolution as circulated? Thank you very much, Mr. Former President Mitchell. And also, I saw another hand. Chris, thank you. And so someone from the floor also seconded. So I put this resolution now to vote, and I will repeat the motion, right? And members are really asked to note that this is a special resolution, and we will require no less than 75% of the members who are present in this room to vote. So can we have a vote by the show of hands for the special resolution, which now adopts a new articles of incorporation for the PSOJ, by a show of hands? Those in favor? And I think that looks like 75%. Tracy? And those against? State that the resolution has been carried. I thank you all very much. And in these types of situations, we'll now be able to move to virtual meetings. I want to also at this time acknowledge members who have joined online. I've been advised that a number of members have actually joined us online, and we do welcome you all to the streaming of our annual general meeting. I also want to ensure that all members now are able to vote. Is there anyone having a problem that we need to provide assistance with? Evo? Tracy? Evo. Everybody else is fine because we can give you okay, please raise your hands and they will come by. Please note that the Wi-Fi for the room, the username is PSOJ12 and the password is PSOJ12 and it's all lowercase. Anyone having a challenge, just let us know. So, members, ladies and gentlemen, let's move to the exciting part. The President has indicated that a lot has transpired in the past year. So I'm now going to be handing over the President, who is now going to do his report. Keith?
Thank you, Greta. Everyone hearing? Good. So we have the presentation up. Yep. Good. So, the PSOJ framed its strategy as inclusive and equitable growth through advocacy and action. Okay, and to create opportunities for all Jamaicans to achieve our true potential as a nation. Now, let me just start by thanking Mr. Howard Mitchell, immediate past president, who served from 2017 to 2019. Howard we know to be a no-nonsense, strident, and resolute president and advocate in civil society, and he continues to do so. Howard put the agenda of crime firmly on the table for Jamaica and the private sector organization of Jamaica. In a July 2019 Observer article, the headline was, "Do It for Jamaica." the national consensus for Jamaica. Howard worked publicly. He worked behind the scenes to get this done. He put the leadership in place to get it done. And we'd like to just acknowledge Howard for his efforts, because today it is a reality that we have a national consensus on our crime. Thank you very much, Mr. Mitchell. That is work, because we're all at the table, 12 stakeholder groups at the table with the main political parties and the National Security Minister and Deputy Prime Minister and the members of the opposition at the table discussing. We were never at the table before, and through that hard work, started from 2017, 2018, has now come to fruition. So again, acknowledgement, Howard Mitchell, sir. Thank you very much for that. Yes, sir. All right, well, I would like to acknowledge them also, because George continues to serve with his knowledge and expertise as chairman of the Standing Committee on National Security and Justice. And we know Peter Thwaites is very vocal, and he has my email box full. You know what I mean? So I understand, Howard. I understand. So, thanks again. So, in moving forward, I mean, we had transitioned also from Makiba, and we want to thank Makiba for her service also, because there was a transitional role that she played, and really looked to streamline the organization. So, thank you, Makiba, and the secretariat team for the work that they continue to do. So, how do we start? So, we need to understand where we are as a country. Where are we as a country, and how do we go forward? And the PSOJ strategy must be relevant to how we go forward as a country, and where do we want to be as a country if we want to see inclusive and equitable growth going forward for us as a country. So when we look at the, from an economic perspective, and I chair EPOC, so I have a perspective on the economy that I continue to update the country on a quarterly basis. And when we look at where our performance, Jamaica has achieved macroeconomic stability for the past 7 years. Jamaica achieved growth levels have been very, very anemic, however, over the last 30 years, averaging 1%. You know, why is that? You know, why aren't we able to break out of that low growth syndrome, you know? Our debt to GDP levels went as high as 145% in 2012-13 and has come down to 94.4% at the end of the fiscal year 2019-2020. Then COVID hit. However, I just wanted to just kind of point out where our debt levels are. Our nominal GDP at the end of 2019-20 was $2.13 trillion, right? We are, that was at the end of 1920. In our pre-COVID budget, we projected our GDP to be 2.28 trillion, a growth rate of 1.1%, right? That's nominal GDP. And we expected our debt levels to decline from 2 trillion and in our original pre-COVID budget to $1.95 trillion. National debt, that is how much we owe to the rest of to investors, to the rest of the world, and domestic investors. So therefore, our debt to GDP level, our debt to GDP and our debt as a percentage of GDP had fallen below 100%. And we are on the right track to get into 84.4 before COVID hits for the end of this fiscal year, 2020-2021. COVID hit, and now we're projected to end the year at 102.9% debt to GDP with a debt of $2.13 trillion. So therefore, however, we still remain very stable. Interest rates continue to be low. Our net international reserves and gross reserves continue to be strong and at the highest level still from a historical perspective in Jamaica. So the macroeconomic framework is in place, and inflation continues to be in the range of 4 to 6%. So we do have macroeconomic stability. and that we have a foundation for growth. But macroeconomic stability is not all that it's all about. You know, why are we still at 1%? Why are we still hovering around 1%? Why isn't it that we can't get this economy rolling and moving? However, with COVID, we anticipated that we would have had a 1% growth. That was a projection of 1.1%. After COVID, the new projections are now for the economy to decline 10% for this current fiscal year. So far, we have lost tax revenues of about $60 billion for the first 7 months of the year. Tax revenues are $60 billion behind where they were last year, right? We expect partial recovery and kind of a whiplash recovery. That's the term, right, Chris? A whiplash recovery over the next 2 years of growth of like 4 to 5% over the next 2 years. And we should get back to pre-COVID levels, nominal GDP in 2022 to 23, but real GDP in around 2024, 2025. So that's where we are as a country in terms of our macroeconomic. But let's look at our productivity and how Jamaica has performed over the last 20 years in comparison to our neighbors. So Jamaica's productivity levels per capita is at $23,000 US in the year 2000. We have declined to 19,840 at the end of 2019, while the Dominican Republic has moved from 26,000 productivity per capita to 40,000. Okay? Trinidad and Tobago has moved from 48,000 in the year 2000 to 68,000 productivity per capita, US dollars. This is from Source, the Jamaica Productivity Center. Okay? We have been losing productivity, and growth must be related to that, because if you're a productive economy, then you should be able to generate greater growth. Now, why is that? A couple of areas that we need to focus on as a country and as a private sector are key areas that impact productivity: digitization, ease of doing business, human capital development, and crime. So let's talk a little bit about that. When we look at ease of doing business and our ranking, up to 2013, we were ranked at about 94. With the economic reform program of the International Monetary Fund, our ease of doing business ranking came down to as low as 65 and is back now to 71. That was really because we had the credit bureaus with the credit bureaus coming on stream in around 2014, 2012, 13, in that range, Jackie. And that was a significant improvement, and the Secure Transaction Act, which allowed financial institutions to be able to take different types of collateral. Have we really gotten the benefit from that? Not where we have the legislation in place, but I don't think we're truly getting the benefit, because in that collateral registry, all we have is mainly motor vehicles. And we need to take receivables, we need to do receivables financing, we need to do all of these various areas. However, it allowed us to improve in our ease of doing business. However, if we rank ourselves out of 100, this is out of 190 countries, we are at 71. We are actually ahead of many of our peers in the region. So therefore, we haven't done a bad job. We're ahead of the only countries that are better is Mexico, Mexico and two other countries, but they are Central American countries, and we are way ahead of our Caribbean peers in this regard. However, if we look at where we are in terms of trading across borders, we're at 136 out of 190 countries and behind our own Caribbean peers. So if we're a small open economy and it's so hard to trade, it's going to be a challenge for us. So therefore, these are key areas that we need to look at, and we will address that later. When we look at our connectivity, we have a lower level of penetration of mobile and fixed broadband, right? We lag the region. So total mobile broadband subscribers at March 2020, right, when we compare 645,000, our population penetration of 23,600 against an average penetration in the region of 102%. Total fixed broadband is at 36%, against the region of 45%. Landline and voice over internet is at 39 compared to the region of 52. We have work to do in this regard. When we look at our labor force indicators, We actually have, and the amount of people that offer themselves for the labor force is about 14 and over, 2 million people that are eligible for the labor force. 1.2 million are actually in the labor force. That means there are 806,000 people that are not in the labor force. Not in the labor force. Right? Means there are 230,000 who are in school or part-time. So of that 806,000 who are outside the labor force, 230,000 are in school. That means there's 576,000 people that are not in the labor force or have not offered themselves for work. So when we look at the number and we say unemployment is 7.3% and unemployment is 12.6% as at the end of July, that doesn't include this 576,000 people that are outside. We can't use the word unattached, but a great element of this is unattached people that are sitting at home in their communities and have not offered themselves for employment. That is a big number. That is a big number. So when we look at it, okay, so when we look at now, when we break it out and we say the ages between 14 and 44 who are outside the labor force, that's 538,000 people. Those are young people. When we look at our labor force and we look at the amount of people that are trained, so of our total labor force, 1.269 total, 822,000 have no training. 822,000 people of our labor force have no training, right? So percentage of labor force without training or certification, 65%. That's a very telling number. Now then we look at our per capita GDP, how much do we earn as a people? And we compare ourselves to Barbados and Trinidad. Barbados is at 18,000 per person, Trinidad and Tobago at 16,000, and Jamaica is at 5,400. Which the Jamaicans don't have any purchasing power. How are they going to drive GDP and buy goods and services where we don't have no purchasing power? Because we're not trained as a people. So you wonder why we have our crime statistics where they are, right? With our murder rates of over 1,000 for the last 20 years or so, approximately, and being the highest in the region of, the region is 20 per 100,000, and Jamaica is at 49 as at the end of 2019. And we have an issue with public order and indiscipline, and we wonder why we are where we are. So how is the PSOJ strategy related to this? And all of this drives productivity. All of this drives productivity. So our officers have now a focused strategy around how we address many of these key areas. Economic oversight, we will continue that through EPOC. Crime and public order. So what we did was at the beginning of our year in office, we assigned and agreed on and assigned accountabilities and areas between the officers, the chair of the committees, and the committees around the strategic objectives that we had. So therefore, we engaged the entire organization around the strategic objectives of the PSOJ, right? And we aligned our efforts, and we worked as a team. So therefore, on the crime and public order, George and I would focus in that area, George being the chairman of the Standing Committee on National Security and Justice. On the SME access to finance, as vice president, I took this up with Howard's approval, and we have worked that through, and we continue to work in that area. Human capital development, gender and disabilities, that is led by Mariam as the officer in charge with responsibility for the area, and Renee Morrison me as the committee chair. Environmental sustainability, that's Mariam again, with the committee chair, the hardworking Eleanor Jones. Ease of doing business, that would be economic policy, that would be Jackie. Innovation and digital transformation, that would be Chris Record as chair and Jackie as the VP. GOJ divestment and outsourcing, economic policy, Jackie Sharp. Stimulating investments, Jeffrey Hall. And Jackie and Jeffrey co-chair that economic policy committee. Corruption and governance would be EVA, with chair being Greta Boggs and Paul Hanworth for listed companies. Membership and engagement and retention, we had Chris who chaired this area for a long period of time. Thank you, Chris, for your service, sir. You know, and we now have a new chair in Yannick Page, who is now taking over that role as chair of that committee. Now, during the year, we had to pivot because COVID hit and the private sector had to take a stance, and we had to take responsibility, and we had to all hands on deck for Jamaica. So the first thing we did, and this was under with the support and leadership of Chris Zaka, we procured ventilators, and Howard Mitchell, who brought it to our attention around the need, and then we were able to raise $150 million. And Chris has been kind enough to really have done the work in coordinating with the donors, and I think Chris, I think you just paid for 10 ventilators in the last couple of days, right? And so Chris has managed that whole effort, and we don't have much to thank the donors, and we have to thank Chris for his efforts and keeping this going. You know what I mean? So thank you again, Chris. And our COVID-19 response fund, we raised about $200 million. We got to, these were getting packages out to the communities. We worked with Paris Leo from Mona Informatics to design a whole database to determine, and this was with Howard's guidance now, to determine how do we get to the most vulnerable and how do we get to those in the greatest need, in poverty, etc. And we were able to get to 83,000 beneficiaries in 60 communities over a period of about 16 weeks, working with the Jamaica Constabulary Force, working with the JDF who designed the logistics, and we got into 60 communities for 12 every other weeks for 12 to 16 weeks in these communities. What we're able to achieve with that also is that when we sat with the commissioner and we said we wanted to work with the JCF, and this was from John Biles, now we got this model, and through his experiences in Montego Bay with Superintendent Vernon Ellis, and John put us onto this, working with the JCF, and we touched base with the JCF, and we're able to build that relationship with the JCF where they deliver the package because the commissioner said that he wanted to deepen the relationships with the communities, and they were able to deliver these food packages into the communities. 83,000 beneficiaries that were served. I'd like to thank UWJ, I'd like to thank CVSS, I'd like to thank especially the project manager, Safra Brown, Greta Boggs as chairperson of, what do you call that committee again, Greta? The Oversight Committee, the Fund Oversight Committee, and managing that, and it was a very transparent process in terms of how we manage the funds, and we have an audit report being done by PwC as we're closing the fund. And we also know we do have soup kitchens that will be running for Christmas in various communities as we continue this effort to see how we can continue to support. We also had, in terms of education, COVID CAS Jamaica, and this is our weekly program where we seek to engage with small and medium enterprises and wider Jamaica around, protocols and how do you living with COVID. What does every SME need to know during the COVID-19 pandemic, living within and understanding COVID, the industry best-in-class response to COVID-19. And we just had a program with Gloria Henry from the BPOs who have done a tremendous job in that regard, and even the manufacturers and retail in terms of how do they manage, and we want it to be like an example. So we cover topics, managing redundancy and all of these various areas. So far, we have like 3 million views. It's every Thursday. It's hosted by Nevada Poe, the chief architect for the PSOJ SME program, or the Access to Finance Facilitation Panel, and Rochelle Cameron. They host it on a weekly basis. We have 3 million views, and it has been really picking up momentum. The PSOJ also participated and was very instrumental in the formation of the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Task Force, formed by the Prime Minister under the chairmanship of Nigel Clark. And the mandate was not simply fixing what has been broken by COVID, however, to address the fundamental gaps that have been exposed by COVID-19 and exploit the opportunities the crisis offers. Subcommittees were formed in tourism and aviation, agriculture, global services, construction and infrastructure, manufacturing, COVID-resilient Jamaica, and a new economy, macrofiscal and local services. All the committees were chaired by ministers except for local services, which was chaired by myself, in terms of working with small and medium enterprises and micro enterprises, and in terms of community bars, Diane Ashton Smith, Jerry and Neville, for the work we did in terms of rolling, really getting educated those bar owners when the community bars were open. Diane, and thank you very much for that support for Bread Strike. And Ray and Neville also, if I don't say Ray and Neville, Greta will kill me, okay? In terms of the COVID partnership around, we have to approach things with the partnership, and that is the approach of the PSOJ. We have always, not only just go out there and, get really strong, and no, we sit first, and we engage and we find out, where are you, what is the challenge, how can we help? And if we see that we're not getting action, then that's when we move into action. And that's when we give it publicly advocate and make some noise, but before we do so, we're going to have constructive engagement. And we have worked with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and there's a working group with the JCC, JMEA, JHTA, Human Resource Management Association of Jamaica Employers Federation, working together with the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And this is using the JHTA model of, in terms of having ambassadors in the workplace, going into the communities. So therefore, we train up the workers, and we work with the Human Resource Management Association of Jamaica. We train up the human resource managers, and we train up the employees, and employees have a responsibility to take it into their communities. So this is a program that is ongoing, and want to thank, we work closely with the CMO and Dr. Spence, and we have a great working relationship with the Ministry of Health at this point in time. And they call Greta every minute and want money and all that kind of thing, and Greta have to manage the expectations, We also, we started a child helpline, and this was under Mariam's leadership and Greta's leadership. Really good work, a partnership with the UNDP. Mariam will speak to that in a little bit, because we know that with everyone in-house, and there was increases in child abuse. So that was also, we also partnered with the Ministry of Education around a device for every child and bridging the digital divide. So we need people to come on board and help here. So far, we had as our opening sponsors, or NCB with $50 million, and the JMB Joan Duncan Foundation with $10 million. And we're making significant progress. I just got a call from today about Guardian and some tablets for flankers in St. James. And so therefore, we are working, and we would like to just really get this up and running, because even when we emerge from COVID, there may be a whole hybrid model that develops in terms of how you deliver education. So, so moving on to the crime, and what I was happy to say and mentioned earlier, that the National Crime Consensus Committee is in place. We have had about 3 meetings to date, outside of the many meetings that Lloyd Diston carries around, meeting with every single person that he can, right? And the committee is in place. We have met. The commissioner has participated in the meetings along with the Minister of National Security, and it is good discussion. What we need to do now is really get it into the public domain. I know Lloyd did his first press conference about a week or 2 weeks ago, and that was facilitated by the PSOJ through Tashna, I believe, in terms of the organization of that effort. But it really works that we have this crime committee in place, and George and I sit there representing the private sector along with Lloyd Diston, who chairs, and we are at the table, which is the most important thing. We also moved to establish a committee on the public order. When I joined the PSOJ, Vikram was like on me about public order, and why aren't we doing something about this? And this is crazy, and the people and the taxi man them, and Vikram was getting vexed every meeting. And I said, well, we have to do something about this, right? So we approached Horace Chang, and Horace Chang was able to relate the work that was occurring in that area. And George will be able to update on that. And they now report into the Standing Committee on National Security and Justice on several areas, which George will speak about in a bit. But in establishing a national consensus on crime, there were key areas that they need to focus on. And I'd like to just acknowledge Lloyd Diston, and Howard really was the man who got Lloyd really engaged and mobilized. Acknowledge Lloyd Diston, president of the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce. He did a real body of work from October forward. in engaging every single stakeholder, civil group, etc., the police, the JDF, everybody that you could think of, Lloyd engaged, women, children, youth, everyone. Association, he engaged around this national crime consensus so we could all agree, and that culminated in the signing on August 3rd, that is really a special day for Jamaica. And maybe we're not seeing the progress, and we're hearing of all the murders, but this is not going to be solved overnight. The most important thing is that we're at the table right now. And a key focus area is socio-economic interventions, because we see all those people that are outside the labor force, right? So therefore, socio-economic interventions is a critical area, the continued reform of the JCF, continued reduction in corruption, and there are deliverables and timelines attached to this in the same way that we have an EPOC. This CMOC is now in place. We'll be able to ramp it up publicly in terms of engaging the country, because everyone is at the table, so that we can build some confidence in Jamaica's crime efforts, crime reduction and crime prevention. Okay? So, moving along. And now I'd like to invite George now to give us a little update. And today we're going to have all the officers and committee chairs speaking today in their areas of accountability and where they have taken on this work with a passion. You want to do from over there, George? That mic? Yeah, it's on. We'll go again.
Thank you. President, officers of the PSOJ, past presidents, distinguished members, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to present, President. We have been working assiduously at trying to get this whole problem of crime under some sort of control with a sustained effort. And on taking office, President, as he indicated, met with various ministers of government, introducing himself in the new role. And coming out of the discussions with the Minister of Transport and Mining and the Minister of National Security, discussions started around establishing a process that would monitor key issues and initiatives that were being taken by the government to deal with crime. The discussions led to the formation of an MOU, which was signed in July of this year, and it was signed between the Ministry of National Security and the private sector organization of Jamaica. The MOU identified 4 key activities that were being undertaken by the government that would, we would be able to monitor the progress, we would be able to monitor the key milestones within the development of those strategies. The first one was the traffic ticket management system. As President indicated, that Vikram gets infuriated when the taximen pass him on the roadway and bad drive him. I think we all experience that. I don't think that there is one Jamaican that is not exposed to the indiscipline on the roadway, which becomes the catalyst to wider indiscipline in our society. And we therefore thought that getting the traffic ticket management system working and working properly should be a deterrent to the continued indiscipline on the road. So we had that as the number one objective, to monitor the whole revamping, reorganization, and modernizing of the traffic ticket management system. Where are we today on that? The softwares, well, what I should say first is that the TTMS transcends 4 government agencies, and therefore you all know that it is not an easy task to get 4 government agencies to work together. So we start with the police through the Ministry of National Security as the persons who issue the tickets. The database and platform is owned by the Ministry of National Security. It moves immediately after the ticket is issued to the Ministry of Finance, which is the collector of taxes, Tax Administration, Jamaica, because you have that 19-day window in which to pay your ticket, otherwise you go to court. So you have the opportunity to pay at the tax office, then you go to court if you don't pay in time or you feel that you are not guilty. So the information has to go to the courts, and it transcends in a timely and orderly manner. When the matter is dealt with in the court, it is disposed of, but the disposal has to go to the Island Traffic Authority to go on your driving records. So all of that coming together was quite a challenge because most courts had no internet connectivity. They had computers that were sitting on the shelf from the day they got it and never put into use. So we had to look at that entire process and get that functional again. So we now have a complete transition of information, and what also took place was the modernization. So we have the build-out of the tablets to the police officers to issue tickets. That has brought it to another level because when the police officer now stops an individual, he sees his entire driving information and if he has any warrants for arrest or anything else. So the history of the vehicle and the history of the driver is available to the officer on the tablet when he stops and interrogates you. So the process is at this point where the pilot is being run on the tablets. It has been successful so far. Tablets have been procured and they're being configured for further distribution to the JCF. As we all know, the Road Traffic Act was amended a number of years ago, but has not been implemented because there are further amendments of other legislations. We at the MOU Oversight Group are looking now at including the amendments to the Island Traffic Authority and also to, there's one other legislation dealing out of the Ministry of Transport, so that we can get it enacted, because the fines as they are a waste of time and will not be a deterrent. So the objective is to get it right through the process. The government at this point in time are on target and on track for the milestones that have been set on that one. The other one we are dealing with is the whole matter of build out of the Jamaica Eye. Some years ago, there was a big announcement about the Jamaica Eye program. We were all optimistic that we would be able to have cameras in the various townships and communities. It has not evolved because there were some serious technical issues in the build out. We're working towards with the government to overcome those issues so that we can get, firstly, the cameras that are already in the public space functional and reporting to regional monitoring centers. They will then move to taking government-owned cameras, connecting it to the system so that they can have access to the information from those cameras in the public and open spaces. That is where they are at now. They are also looking at being able to identify privately owned cameras in the public space that they can have connectivity to. This is being done selectively by areas that they have voids, either in the public cameras or the government cameras, so that they can get a better coverage of what would be determined as their hotspots. Eventually, the objective is to have a wider build-out and network of cameras that will give the security apparatus the information that they need. The other one that we are working on is with the National Road Safety Council, which is the body who is monitoring our road fatalities. I think we're all alarmed at the level of motorcycle fatalities we have on our roadways, particularly in Western Jamaica. We saw earlier this year the establishment of 2 simulators for rider training. COVID has impacted that whole process, so it's behind track. But 2 simulators were built out into Western Jamaica, and they are now being run by the staff of the National Road Safety Council, because The persons who had originally come forward to work in that program have had to withdraw because of COVID. So they are stretched now, and it is our intention to lobby for greater resources to be able to put that on track. They've also looked at modifying the driver's learner's license program so that persons will not just get a learner's license and jump on a motorcycle and ride. There are certain tests you will have to do, particularly road code, so there's a level of education before you get on a motorcycle. The other one that we're monitoring is the Noise Abatement Act. And I think everybody is aware of the cry before COVID about the level of night noises that we had in our various communities, and to try to find some semblance of order and reasonability in our night noise legislation. That process is one of dialogue and communication which continues at this point in time. Within the MOU, we have a monitoring and oversight committee established. As chairman of the Standing Committee on National Security and Justice at PSOJ, I chair that oversight committee. It is made up of 2 other members from the private sector organization and 3 members nominated by the Ministry of National Security and 3 members from the Ministry of Transport, including one of those being somebody from the National Road Safety Council. We get quarterly reports from the Ministry of National Security on the 4 items that I mentioned in the program, and we discuss the progress being made, we discuss the hindrances to progress, and how we can keep it moving in the right direction and ensure that the timelines and milestones are being met. We are about to issue our first quarterly report on that, Greta, next week. Sunday, I think, is the target. Yes, that we will be issuing our first quarterly report on this committee. We felt that these things, if we can get them online, we can get them functional in a sustainable way, it will go a far way in addressing some of the public disorder that we exist in. Thank you very much, President.
I really like to thank George for his leadership in this area. His knowledge and expertise and commitment to this process has been tremendous. And reporting to the public and having them understand what is the work that is occurring to build confidence and build knowledge, so people can, we can always sit on our verandas and cuss, right? That's easy. But to do the work and work in partnership and really get things done and engage the public so they are a part of the know, they're in the know, and we are part of the solution. And that's the most important thing, being at the table and being a part of the solution. So thank you very much, George, for that. And we can now move on to human capital development, and Mariam.
Good afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed. I just want to give a quick update on the human capital development work of the private sector organization of Jamaica. So human capital is one of the strongest assets of any nation, of any company. And so certainly within our own companies, we know that one of the key success factors for our business is having the right talent in the business, in the right roles, and properly trained. We focused on 3 key things over the last 12 months, as we would have shared in our strategy a year ago. One is around supporting and developing our human talent, human capital talent, specifically as we see the trends of digital economy and the 4th industrial revolution, etc. Second is actually around the digital economy. And with COVID, that has certainly brought the emphasis and the importance to the forefront. And then the third is the focus on gender and disabilities, and that would have been started before this particular team would have been put in place by our former president. So in terms of what we've and the fourth thing I should mention is focus on labor laws, continue to strengthen and impact labor laws. So with this theme of moving from advocacy to action, so yes, talk is important, but what have we actually done? So on the next page, just 3 quick things. First, Currently, the sexual harassment bill is being debated right now in Parliament by the Joint Select Committee, and a number of stakeholders have given input. They reached out to us in the summer, and we pulled together a working group to provide feedback and presented a couple weeks ago in Parliament. Just very briefly, there are 4 areas of feedback that we as the PSOJ had to provide on the sexual harassment bill. One is around increasing the scope and definition of what is sexual harassment, not to be confused by a criminal act or sexual abuse or the current acts that are already in place. This is really focused on sexual harassment, which is not yet in place. And the biggest discussion or debate was around increasing the scope to include transport centers, taxis, etc., and not to limit it only to workplaces and institutions. The second was around the process. How do you access the tribunal? And so it's from the makeup of the tribunal to the actual process of how you go through using the internal resources before reaching out to the tribunal, etc. The third was around, favorite that played out in the press, the statute of limitation. I will just share that the PSOJ's point of view was it should match the statute for civil claims or tort claims, which is, anyone knows? 6 years, just in case anyone asks you. So that is our logic. That's what we shared there. And the fourth theme was around the awards of the tribunal, which was unlimited right now in the current version of the bill. And given our familiarity with, say, other tribunals, we wanted to make sure that there was a list of, for these types of offenses, so to speak, there will be these types of awards. Okay, so that was the feedback we got, and we had a good discussion a couple weeks ago. The second one is the child helpline. We will be launching a national children's helpline in Q1 of 2021. The goal really is to provide an outlet for children we're defining as persons under 18 years who have had fewer outlets because of the restricted movements caused by COVID-19. And we've partnered, this is most important actually, we are partnering with the Office of the Children's Advocate, OCA, UNICEF. We've just signed a memorandum about 6 weeks ago, and everyone is very excited. We have chosen a marketing firm. We'll be going to market with this in January. One of the things we realized, in order for us to be successful, the ecosystem, including children, need to be aware that this exists, and it needs to be very easy in terms of how they access us. We will be doing 1-800 numbers, of course, so the toll-free number, but also using social media, WhatsApp, email, text messages, etc. The goal is it will be an 18-month initiative. It will be an 18-month initiative to deal with the immediate impact of COVID. We are using software and will be heavily metriced or measured. And we believe that if it is that the helpline works and we can show that it is effective, which is good and bad if it works, like it means that there's a big need. But if it does work, we would then hope that by the time we get closer to the end of the 18 months, we would then be able to raise funds and bring together even more resources to continue. But we felt very important that it needs to be defined as a very specific project so we can really address the need. That's the Children's Helpline. And then finally, under the chairmanship of Renee, who's not here, Renee Morrison-May, she was the chair of the Gender and Special Abilities or Disabilities Subcommittee. We've started quarterly webinars. We just had one a couple weeks ago, which went very well, and we'll be continuing that into 2021. So when you think about 2021 for the next 12 months for human capital development work of the PSOJ, will be focused on number one, or what does success look like? Number one, the Children's Helpline is launched, and if you'd like to get involved and assist us even more, Greta Bogues has been working very hard on this. Yeah, Greta. Please contact us. We think this is we really need the ecosystem, the broad ecosystem, to be as supportive as possible. Secondly, we'll be having more of these webinars to bring our HR folks as well as the broader PSOJ team members up to speed on some of these topics that are usually not discussed. That's the second thing. And then the third thing will be around, as more companies take on digital transformation and they're doing it in their silos, what can the PSOJ do to bring resources together to expose more of our team members to this upskilling required as we move into this digital age even more? Thank you very much.
Over to Eva.
Thanks, Keith, Mr. President. Very, very quickly, I know we're moving ahead, trying to get through everything on time. I have obviously the pleasure of probably managing or having the oversight over one of the best run committees in the PSOJ and long-standing, that of corporate governance, which basically I'm just here as a spokesman because Greta does all the work, trust me. So I have the oversight of the corruption and corporate governance committees, and I think it's underpinned by essentially from an advocacy to action perspective, as Mariam says, what are we doing? Well, as we know that, and we can see on the slide here, Jamaica's standing or rank in the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index actually fell in 2019 from 70 in 2018 to 2019. And as we all know that corruption juxtaposed to governance, obviously the two should be like oil and water. The fact of the matter is that with better governance, we can protect ourselves against corruption. So under the governance committee, we've sort of focused on sort of three main pillars: zero tolerance to corruption, supporting initiatives such as the training of strong directors not only within the private sector, but very much a focus on building the private sector resources, human capital, to ensure that in the protection of Jamaica's assets, that we are training directors to actually take their places on actual public boards. And this has been a very, very key focus of the Corporate Governance Committee. As you can see on the slide, we had a training for, I think we trained around 20 folks this year, Greta, on the Corporate and Governance and Leadership seminar. I think we've trained 60 persons prior to that, so we're doing quite well despite COVID, and that really and truly gets persons ready to actually sit and be nominated for public board status. One of the key developments that is actually going to be rolled out in 2021, in 2006, the PSOJ actually established sort of a rules of the road, a governance code, or a corporate governance code, which sort of set out how you should establish governance within in the frame of reference of your company. That corporate governance code has been actually updated twice since 2006, but we're taking a huge step, again, very much led under Greta's direction with her very, very hardworking committee, where in 2021, the code is going to be completely revamped. And one of the key aspects of the code is now going to actually speak to specific governance rules of the road specifically for different types of companies. So it really provides a much deeper and broader perspective on governance codes for different types of companies, not-for-profit, small businesses, family-run businesses, large corporations, small corporations. So I think it will be it will be obviously very granular and provide our entire membership with sort of a document to drive best practices in governance. So that's going to be rolled out in 2021, Greta, specifically. Under the initiative of our previous president, Howard Mitchell, we launched in October 2019, we launched the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, aka JAMP, which is a very novel, very exciting web-based portal that basically seeks to hold the public administration or the government accountable on three main pillars: legislative tracking, performance of actual members of parliament, and of course the public sector accounts of the country. This is a huge initiative. It has been sponsored by the European Union, and PSOJ actually has a responsibility under a steering committee to ensure that the JAMP initiative actually proceeds as expected. I really encourage all of our members to continue to just Google it, JAMP. I can't remember the actual website, but it's a very, very important web-based portal. And I dare say, my understanding from Greta specifically is that JAMP was actually very, very well used in the recent elections, specifically where MP performance tracking was. So it makes a difference when our voices are heard through those. And finally, in September of this year, again with the support of the governance committee, we actually proceeded to do another seminar specifically targeted in collaboration with IDB Invest. I must point this out. It's not noted on the slide here, but very, very strong collaboration here. And we launched a corporate governance seminar specifically targeted at the MSME space. And that was very, very successful. So essentially what we're trying to do basically is as we move ahead into the next couple of years is to make sure that our governance structures in both public and private sector are very strong, and juxtapose that way basically to ensuring that the private sector leads initiatives that holds the public sector specifically accountable as we try to manage the level of corruption and hopefully get our ranking much higher in the oncoming years. So again, just absolute kudos to Greta for her work on the governance committee, and thank you very much.
And we have Jacqueline, Ease of Doing Business and Economic Policy Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good afternoon, everyone. Good to be amongst a group of people physically again. We fought her hard, but, she won. All right, so Keith mentioned earlier about ease of doing business and the importance of it in facilitating economic growth. And the fact is that we still have significant hurdles that we're experiencing that makes doing business a lot harder than it really needs to be. And so we continue to have dialogue through various fora with our members and with industry associations to try and identify those hurdles and highlight them so that they can be addressed by all the key relevant stakeholders. And a lot of our work, if you move to the next slide, has been focused on supporting the National Competitive Council, which focuses on the key indicators that are tracked by the World Bank's Doing Business report. There are a number of different indicators that they track, and there is a subcommittee for each of those indicators, and the whole idea is to try and move the needle, get those roadblocks, hurdles addressed so that we can improve our rankings in all these areas. PSOJ is represented on the various subcommittees of the NCC, and we are focusing on things like trading across borders, paying taxes, and getting electricity, which are some of the key areas where we fall below our competitors and areas that we need to fix. You can't hear me? Keith. It's Keith's fault, right? He's too tall. Okay, so we are definitely making some way. We're participating in a number of different meetings, addressing the areas and making recommendations to fix them so that we can improve our rankings. And we continue to participate. The NCC now has a new chair, Minister Audley Shaw, and we had a recent meeting where we went over all the key priorities and what we're going to be focusing on in the next year. So we look forward to feedback from our members on any of those areas that they would like to incorporate so that we can take those issues to the table. We're also not only looking at areas of inefficiency in terms of government agencies and support, but also private sector companies as we deal with each other. And one significant area is the whole area of payments. And we have to, especially because of COVID, and going forward, we have to try and move away from cash and checks and get to electronic payments across the system in a very fast, efficient, and safe way. And so a lot of work has been going on behind that. One of the key wins that we had through the AFFP project was to get a reduction in the KYC requirements for low-risk accounts. Because as you make payments from a large to a medium to a small to individuals, you have to get everybody in the chain to have a bank account to receive those electronic payments. And so all of the banks really came up to the table, stood up to the task and reduced their KYC requirements, adjusted their whole compliance frameworks, and created a type of account for low-risk individuals where they would be able to open bank accounts with very little account opening documents, basically an ID. And I think all banks are on board. Our next phase now is to look at small businesses, because the requirements are still quite onerous. And that's a little bit more complicated, as Mariam would highlight, because those small businesses carry a lot more risk than a small individual. We're really going to have to get very creative and see how we can find ways to reduce it and make that process less complicated. And then the more we can have people opening accounts and then starting to use digital payments, it's a more efficient we can have overall. And one of the things that we also did was have met with the banks to outline a number of areas as to where they could provide us with a little bit more support on their internet banking platforms that would help individuals as well as small businesses to use it more effectively, whether it's in the form of just training them, but also there are tools on the platform that will allow you to download information into their accounting software, so it makes it easier to do the accounting and the paperwork on the back end. The speed of the payments moving from one bank to another, those are the kinds of things that we're having discussions with the bank now, and our real thrust is to try and move to a fully electronic digital payment system and elimination of cash and checks at some point. Right, Keith? So those are key areas for ease of doing business.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Jackie. Jeffrey.
All right, folks. I gather Vikram achieved great success by being strident on the issue of public order. So I want to be strident. I gather it works. I want to be strident on the issue of investment. So if you look at Keith's early slide where he mentioned the Dominican Republic as our role model for dramatic growth, fastest growth in the hemisphere for 25 years, averaging around 6.5%. Half of their growth comes from investment, which is a component of aggregate demand. We are beating them on the corruption index. We're beating Panama. We're far better than they are. But we're losing on the level of investment in Jamaica. So we have to figure out how to fix that immediately. And the starting point for the conversation has been to identify people who are currently investing in Jamaica in significant quantums, either from the standpoint of employment or dollars, and figure out why they're here and whether we can pursue them to put some more money here. So we started out with a series of conversations on that dimension. If you turn the slide, I'll just say what they were. But we want to get some momentum going on it. But to be clear, the first four were pre-COVID, initially with JAMPRO to understand its methodology, followed up by Anand Birdar from HGS and a number of other participants in the BPO sector, understanding their appetite for doing more in Jamaica, followed with infrastructure, which is a huge component for us, in that case, the airport sector. And more recently, you'd have heard, sponsored by GMMB, our conversation on digital connectivity that Jackie hosted with Dennis O'Brien, Digicel, Flow, the IDB, and GMMB. We got sidetracked from the emphasis on investment, which we're going back to right away, because of COVID. And for the benefit of the business community and our role as Economic Policy Committee, we held a number of sessions to try to understand for your benefit the impact of COVID. There were 4. One was with the IDB to understand the GDP gap in Jamaica and how significant it would be, had Henry Mooney articulate it for us. One with the Minister of Finance, issue Keith spoke about, which is the fiscal gap. One is where we had the benefit of modeling work done by members of the PSOJ in consultation with the BOJ on the FX gap, really intending to reassure people to some extent. And as it has turned out, I think there was some validity to that. And then more recently, trying to give voice to the tourism interests in Jamaica as part of the recovery program, because we heard from people like John Biles. So we hosted the regional heads from American Airlines and Carnival Cruise Lines, as well as the IDB. So essentially, we're giving voice to the investment. Frankly, next year, it's going to be about working the national investment policy, which has been put forward as a white paper, and turning it into an action framework. So that's our work plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. That is real work that needs to occur. And you know, Jeffrey and I had a very long discussion last night around this. And the thinking is there, and I think we're going to really make a difference. You know what I mean? And we're going to bring the key, bring capital to the table. That is the intention, to bring the capital to the table, ramp up investments in Jamaica. Moving on, we also had to ensure now that small businesses represent about 70% of the employed labor force in Jamaica, small businesses, and they get a total of 10% of bank credit. 70% of the labor force, 50 to 60% of GDP, but they get 10.7% of bank credit, of the available credit from the banks. That means there is a gap in terms of small business accessing finance for growth. And where does growth come from? Innovation come from. Small and medium enterprises grow into large businesses. A JMB grow from Ocean Boulevard in one office to become a regional player. That is how you grow a small business. So why is it that we are not seeing many small businesses move through? Because there's a problem of access to finance. It has to be addressed. And under Howard's leadership, I said, Howard, can I take this on, please? And he said, yes, okay. I said, and we put together a stakeholder panel of every player in the ecosystem: the Jamaica Bankers Association, Small Business Association of Jamaica, MSME Alliance, Jamaica Business Development Corporation, DBJ, JCC, MICAF, JMA, Exim Bank, everyone at the table to really address this area of access to finance. And it was about how do we, you can't bank a SME the same way you bank a corporate. They're different. They're a different animal. You know what I mean? And so therefore, we had to design fit-for-purpose solutions. We have to be able to look at our credit adjudication process. We have to look at the products and services, receivables financing, collateralized lending. What are those fit-for-purpose products that you need to design for small and medium enterprises to be able to access? Because they will not meet the criteria of a corporate meets of your credit risk manager, whether in a credit union or in a commercial bank. So therefore, we focused around this area. We made significant progress in this area, and now reverse factoring is now to be rolled out by DBJ. Must congratulate DBJ on their efforts. We worked along with the DBJ, Hugh Duncan, Craig Mayer from Scotiabank. They're also key players in this. This is driven by Nevada Powell, Rochelle Cameron, and a whole team of us, some young analysts, about 10 of us, just working at this week in, week out, with significant deliverables that we've been working through. And we are making some progress. It's heavy lifting. It is heavy lifting, but progress has been made. We worked on the tiered KYC. We have Rochelle with her, Cameron with her legal experience, and she helped us design it, and so we're able to engage JB and say, yes, man, it can be done, man. See it here? This is the roadmap. And we're able to get that in, and that was with the support because we had a CARE program and COVID, and First Global, I think, led the way, Mariam. First Global led the way in rolling out that product in terms of tiered KYC and a simplified due diligence process, making it easier for retails to open their accounts. So that's the area of focus, but it's again working with the entire ecosystem, coming together with an objective to increase that number and increase access to finance for small and medium enterprises. We continue the effort. COVID Cast is focused around that Thursday weekly program at 7:30 on Thursday night, and you guys must log on and take a look. And we also had a virtual workshop with over 400 people attending, called Crossing the Chasm, the Road to Economic Recovery, where we had Governor Biles, we had the Minister of Finance, we had Fayval Williams as Minister of Science, Energy and Technology, dealing with digitization. We had Leachin talking about agriculture, right? And we had Richard Pandui from the GMA dealing with manufacturing. And, Richard is a strident, that's another strident one who is always pushing and pushing. No talk shop. Let's get it done, And we also had tourism represented, and we had Lloyd Distant, who spoke to the whole Crime Monitoring Oversight Committee. But the thing is, we have to keep Jamaica informed. We have to get people to know that there's a plan, we're working, and there's hope, and we have to get in there as I can. After repeating myself, let's be a part of the solution. And we also launched smallbusinessportal.com, which is where we show all the products and services and all the training modules, smallbusinessportal.com. It's a beautiful website, not beautiful like Donald Trump, right? But it's a very useful and functional website. It shows all the competing banks and all the products and services they offer. It has technical support. It has links, to training programs, etc. So, smallbusinessportal.com, you'll hear a lot more of that. But I would really like to thank the sponsors who sponsored the Small Business PSOJ Access to Finance Panel: Jamaica Bankers Association, the JMB Group, NCB, Joan Duncan Foundation, Maybury Investments, IDB, Scotiabank, Main Event, and CREEF, the Credit Bureau. So we're making some impact. We're making some inroads, and I'd like to, we're going to go back for another round of sponsorship. So everybody's name who I just called, we'll be knocking at the door again, and we're going to add Chris to that list. So over to, we're going to have Mariam again on environmental sustainability.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Okay, so one thing I should mention for this update on energy, environmental, and climate change. So Eleanor Jones, hi Eleanor, that's our committee chair, and she has a very active, large committee, and they show up every month on time, and they stayed for the whole meeting to discuss these issues. So I'm just the mouthpiece sharing. All right, good. So there are 3 areas of focus for the Energy, Environment, and Climate Change Committee. The 3 areas are energy, climate change, and environment. In terms of what we have done, I really want to focus first on the energy side. So over the last 12 months, we have participated in giving feedback on the recent OUR review. Sorry, say that? Oh, okay, right. And that was actually led by Nigel Davey, who's one of the members of our committee. And that was a very extended process. We're also in the middle of a pricing review or discussion with JPS, and a lot of that is coming out of in the summer, just the public outcry about bills going up. So we thought, wouldn't this be a great opportunity to just look along with JPS as to how pricing is done. And JPS is a very active member of this committee for many years. On the Energy Council, we've had representation there. We've sat on National Adaptation Fund Steering Committee. And so we continue to be in the dialogue around energy mix and supporting the government's vision around where Jamaica needs to be by 2030 and beyond. On the climate resilience side, this is the one hopefully you've heard about. A year ago, we would have participated in supporting the Prime Minister's launch of 3 million trees in 3 years. This came out of just Jamaica's leadership role in the world on championing fighting climate change, which is so relevant to our region. So we are very pleased to be a part of this. Camille Jackson is another committee member who's leading this charge, and we're asking all of you and others to support. The private sector has said to the government that we will support by planting 500,000 trees And I know some of you and some entities have already not just committed, but they've started to plant trees. We're in the tree planting phase. The 3 years has started, though COVID has slowed us down a little bit. And we are apparently going to launch this very soon, both the Prime Minister and our President, Keith Duncan. You'll be seeing a lot more from the PSOJ to officially launch this effort, notwithstanding that work has been going on, and we hope more of you will come on board. So we're very excited about this, and we want to give a shout out to Total, GB Energy, New Fortress Energy. A lot of the energy companies have come on board with this tree planting initiative, even before the official launch. All right, and then just talking about the environment side, particularly on waste management, you know, we have participated. You know, we did the styrofoam ban. I think it was a year or two ago. Can't recall. Maybe it was a year ago. About a year ago. So there is a committee to see how has it worked, right? So the ban on single-use plastic bags and styrofoam, we participate on this committee, and David Barrett on our committee is leading that charge and representing the PSOJ there. So looking forward to seeing what comes out there. And then what's probably on everybody's minds, is it? Puerto Bueno. So one of the things we just want to say here is that, you know, first of all, if you think about where Jamaica is and the kind of leadership that Jamaica has played in the area of climate change. You know, our Prime Minister is one of the co-chairs for the UN in terms of financing climate change initiatives, along with the Prime Minister of France, right? And so we've made big strides, and the secretariat that works in the government that pushes on climate change, they're on the cutting edge globally, not just for the region, in terms of how we address this. So we want to acknowledge just the good work that we've been doing over the years, and it's been led not just by the private sector. Quite frankly, I think the public sector is ahead of us on this one, where they're really stepping up and taking a leadership role. We do also want to express, though, our concern that, you know, as we have to balance lives and livelihoods, you know, just like with COVID, we do recognize that we express concern around mining in a region that's so sensitive from an ecological standpoint and also so close to our tourism corridor. And we think that the due diligence and the monitoring of how we go forward with this project and any other projects that affects climate change is going to be critical, so critical. All right, so that's our thought there, and that's our position, and we support a number of the groups that have echoed similar sentiments. Now, over the next 12 months, what can you expect from us? Over the next year, what is the Energy, Environment, and Climate Change Committee going to be doing? Well, one, we're going to be launching and ramping up our tree planting initiative. Again, in support of the Prime Minister's 3 million trees for every citizen of Jamaica in 3 years. And we really believe that all of us have a role to play, and we hope that you'll come along with as much fervor and vigor and enthusiasm as the committee has. Two, the JPS pricing review. We hope we'll come to a point of view where we can start to share any insights or changes or tweaks that may come out of that discussion, but it's been a very interesting and robust discussion to date. Three, we're going to be looking at the Green Climate Fund, which is a window that allows access to funds to support climate change initiatives in the private sector. And we would like private sector entities to become certified to access these funds. So stay tuned, you'll hear more about that over the next 12 months. And then finally, I just want to say that we are partnering, like with a number of the different areas that people have, that we've spoken about over the last hour and a half or so. We're nearly done. We are partnering with UNDP. We've just signed the MOU to work with UNDP in the support of initiatives on all 3 areas. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you, Elna, for prepping me well. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, we know we're running out of time, so we're going to try and speed through. But Jackie, innovation and digitization, it's a new committee of the PSOJ.
We just someone Justin again. So you heard a lot of talk this morning about digitization, fourth industrial revolution, and we thought that was so critical for the PSOJ to focus on, that we created this new committee called Innovation and Digital Transformation, which is very able led by Chris Record. Thank you, Chris, for stepping up for that. He formed a great committee and has regular meetings each month and has assigned various tasks to the different subcommittees of that committee. Now, you see a chart there of Jamaica in between Caribbean and Latin America, and we're tracking a global innovation index, which tracks 8 indicators relating to innovation performance across 131 countries. So Jamaica falls about in the middle of the group and improved its rankings from being in the top 100 last year to being in the top 20 this year. But still, there's a long way to go, and a lot that we have to do to get to be able to compete effectively with our peers in the region. So the committee is tasked with that mandate, and they have established 4 subcommittees to identify strategic actions to achieve all of our digitalization targets and aligning with the government's Recovery Task Force report. So it's 4 key areas: universal broadband access, digital literacy, e-commerce and digital payments, and a national digital identification, needs that you've heard so much about. Each committee has developed 2 to 3 priorities that we're going to be focusing on, and the next steps now are ready to liaise with the relevant government ministries and private sector companies that are involved to determine areas of alignment and establish key deliverables. And then after that, it's identifying funding and our various partners to execute all the initiatives that we agree on coming out of that discussion. We are represented on various committees and task forces around the digital agenda, and there's a lot of work being done by government around this area. Chris sits on probably about 4 or 5 different digital committees, so he's a perfect candidate that can help us to bring all of that work all together. But we sit on the National Business Steering Committee, the SME Go Digital Committee, and the NIDS Task Force are 3 of the key ones that we're focusing on now. And I just want to say that, give a little bit more information on the SME Go Digital Committee, because there's a lot of work that has gone on, again, in support of trying to enable medium and small business enterprises. We conducted a survey among them and found that many of them do not have or use digital platforms in their businesses, particularly as it relates to things like e-commerce, business analytics, operating processes, etc. Things that will help them to be more efficient in operating their businesses. And why don't they have them? Lack of funding, lack of technical expertise, lack of know-how, lack of even understanding what's out there that can actually help them. And so Sheldon said to tell you that real help is on the way. What we are doing, we're looking for finding the experts and also working with DBJ to get partial funding for digitization projects. We're also working with HART and Universal Service Fund to get the technical support. So basically what we want to do is help our medium and small business companies to identify, do an assessment of what their needs are based on the type of products, their business model that they work with, and then help them with funding and with expertise to implement the various platforms that are necessary for them to work, to operate effectively. So the productivity tools, data security requirements, making sure that they comply with the Data Security Act, et cetera, et cetera. So we're identifying what they need, giving a template with a packages of different tools for different size companies. We're going to go and get funding from DBJ, find technical expertise in the form of consultants who will provide that service to do the assessment, and then, take it from there for the small businesses to get themselves digitalized. We're aiming to launch that on January 29. The packages along with the DBJ support. So all of that back-end work is going on now to ensure that it works smoothly. And we're just hoping that SMEs will log on, look out for that conference on January 29, and then apply for the support to do the assessment and get the tools that you need to go digital. So that's it.
Thank you, Jackie. Our membership strategy, we have to drive membership, and You know, the PSOJ has always been seen, we have a public presence and we're in the public domain and newspaper and all of that. And however, you know, what is it that we're actually delivering? What are we delivering to our members? What are we delivering to our associations? You know, outside of those meetings and advocacy and engagement, what are we actually delivering? We wanted to have to define the value proposition with tangible services that we're delivering to our members and our associations. And Greta will speak a little bit on that. But so therefore, over this year, we went through that exercise in defining that value proposition. We got the support of the PSOJ, AFFP resources, Nevada, Rochelle, and the team to work with Greta and the team and Cloline to define the services that you can really say, okay, this is what I get as a member at different levels of membership, right? And important to that is that we have to engage. We have to engage our members with a level of frequency. You know, we have to understand our associations, their objectives, what are they trying to achieve? How do we work with you to achieve your objectives? I mean, working with GHD and like John Biles this year, John certainly worked me very hard this year. You know what I mean? He had me like rake me over and like, you know, really push me to the limit. You know what I mean? So we have to really define the services so John knows that he can call between 9 and 5. I'm just joking, but how do we define the level of services? How do we engage? How do we find out what are the strategic objectives of these various associations so we can help them to achieve their objectives? Meeting with their executives, attending their annual meetings, being a part of their process. We have 26 associations. We need to service them well and help them achieve their objectives along with our members. You know, so it is going to be about relationship management, and therefore we have recruited and hired our new member relationship manager, Anika Jengeli. Anika, and everyone, and she will be driving this relationship management effort where everybody will have a portfolio of associations and members to service them and to ensure that they're delivering real value to our members. So it's just not just seeing us in the newspaper and PSOJ website and Instagram and Twitter. It's about real engagement to help you, our members, really understand what's going on, content, training, you know, what are the actual real services, secretarial and otherwise, you know, health insurance, all of these things that Greta will speak to. But this is what we have defined over this year and we want to roll out. But we're going to roll that out under our new executive director, Imega Matnab, Breeze Matnab. Imega, please stand up. Imega will be join us in mid-January, and she'll work along with Greta and I and the officers and the team in moving the PSOJ forward into the new dispensation of delivering a solid value proposition to our members and our associations. So thank you, Imega, for coming on board, and we'd like to thank the JMEA for all the training that they gave you, and we'd like to thank Mr. Pandui. We know I had a chat with Richard this morning, and we're good now. We're not so good a little while ago, but we're in a much better place now, I would say. You know. So over to you, Greta.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I can tell you, friends, we at the Secretariat are just very excited about this new road, this new value proposition for you, our members. Everything is about you. And what we have done is we have looked at our membership structure and we've tried to realign our membership tiers. So you're going to see that there is a difference in terms of how we have broken out our membership tiers. You will see that you have small business, then you'll have small premium, which provides additional services, of course, at a very nominal cost. And then each particular category, you're going to find that there's going to be a premium that you will pay towards getting some additional services. So we'll have small business, small premium. We'll also have medium business, medium premium. And then we'll have large business plus, and large premium. On the next slide, we also have our individuals, very important, and our micro. And the President spoke about the SME Access to Finance program. And we're really targeting that particular group also to assist them. And what we find is that many of them are single entrepreneurs who will be joining us as individual members. And I might say for this year, that is the group or the category of membership that has grown the most significantly for this year. And then we also have associations. We are working with our associations, and we thank them for that collaboration, and we have some new and exciting services coming on board for them. And most importantly, our overseas associates. This is a category that we've had for many years, but we have really not gone into and really made any inroads in, and that's an area that we're going to be looking at now. So on the next slide, you will see some of the services that we already have. And then we're outlining some of the proposed services that are there. So some of the exciting things that you can look forward to. Some trade facilitation. We're looking to trade missions. We're also looking at some new business insights and economic series that we're talking about. Some great administrative support, especially for our business associations. So we know some of the associations have actually asked us to provide, whether it even be marketing services or other type of administrative services, so we're going to be working with them. And one area that I know a number of persons have been excited about is to do a health insurance, especially again, because we're focused a lot on our SMEs. That's another particular area that we're looking at. So ladies and gentlemen, friends, members, we are excited about these new opportunities, these new services. It's a program that we are rolling out. Anika is going to be calling upon you. All our relationships are all going to be dependent on how we serve you. And that's what we're here to do, to serve you better and to ensure that that value proposition is adding value to your business. That's why we are here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, so we're on the last lap. So there was one committee that we are in the process of getting rolled out, and that's our agro-industry committee. We have to figure out exactly how we tackle agriculture in the medium to long term. Where does agriculture fit? How does it fit into our Jamaican economy? How does it fit in with other sectors? Where do we put the emphasis? And that is a conversation. And we, Matthew Lynn has agreed to take on the leadership role, but he's still working it through, and we're hoping to have this committee fully up and functional maybe in the next 3 months or so. But it's a key area for us to really understand ourselves, understand the sector, and how it fits into the whole Jamaican economic framework. You know, is it competitive? What's the value added? And where do we put our resources? How do we allocate our resources? So very important conversation to happen. So that's going to be an area of focus for us going forward. So therefore, Vikram, you will address PSOJ, the sustainability of the PSOJ, because we have to be able to pay the bills, and therefore Vikram will address this in his treasurer's report. Vikram, what you want to do? Yeah? Okay. And call to action. You know, as we said, the spirit is partnership, constructive engagement with all stakeholders. That is the spirit from which we come. And if we need to get strident, we will. We will become strong advocates if we need to. However, we start from a place of working and cooperation. And that is why we believe that social partnerships are the key. EPOC has worked for us. CMOC has worked for us. ESET has worked for us. As a country, getting everybody to the table, all hands on deck, it works. And if you communicate and you engage the wider Jamaican citizenry around where we are going as a country, it works. You know, so we believe these social partnerships are important, but we as the private sector have a role to play because we can't wait on the government to do everything. What is it that we have to do? And Greta told me I have to do this slide, call to action, right? So we need to return Jamaica to its pre-COVID growth levels, one. But how do we get there? There are opportunities that have emerged, supply chain disruption that have emerged from this COVID. digitization. What are those opportunities that we're going to grab as a private sector to really shift us and move us as a country? You know, we need to step up to the plate with our capital. We need to put our capital at risk. We need to figure it out, and through our investment workshops and our investment strategy driven by Jeffrey, we're going to figure out how do we show those opportunities to the capital, domestic and international capital, to come to the table and invest in Jamaica in sectors that we believe will deliver a return and is sustainable and competitive. Growing our exports and import substitution, we have to deal with that ease of doing business issue with the ranking there. But we have to get our exports and import substitution value added in Jamaica, not supporting someone else's economy, growing our own economy, our local economy. Digitization, we have to get competitive. We have to digitize our businesses, right? And then we have to prepare our workforce. Look at how many of our workforce is untrained. 65% of our workforce is not trained. So we have to, as a business, HRMAJ, how do we design strategies and how do we take responsibility for training our workforce for the fourth industrial revolution? How do we work through our Human Capital Development Committee to get this done and provide the guidance? We must get this done. We must ramp up our training, or our people continue to earn peanuts, 5,400 as against Barbados, 18,000, because they are trained, right? We have to take corporate social responsibility. Our inner city communities, our rural poor, and this is where crime comes from, social intervention, socio-economic. Can we adopt a community? John Biles, you have done a tremendous job in the West with it, working with the police, and really working to get into the communities and support the children, adopt a school, adopt a sports program, adopt a music program. Be a part of the community. Be a part of the solution for Jamaica. Don't sit down and wait on the government to do everything. We can take responsibility. And many have. Many corporates and individuals have done so, but can we do more? So that is the call to action. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. And I apologize for the time, for going over time, but we must thank the UNICEF, our international partners. We must thank the British High Commission for their support. We must thank the European Union, the UNDP, IDB Invest, JAMPRO, and our honorary legal counsel for his first year of service, and we did work with all those MOUs, okay? So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Come and introduce me yourself. Come and tell me, because you would give him all the hard work.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the Officer Corps had lots of work to do. And of course, we have to protect the reputation of the PSOJ. So we decided to actually ask one of our members, who quickly said yes. I don't know if it was quick, but yes, he did say yes. Mr. Patrick McDonald from Hart, Muirhead and Fata. He served for the year as our honorary legal counsel. And we really called upon him a lot, especially when you see new articles of incorporation. So we really, really want to thank you very much, Patrick. And of course, hard work deserves more work. So we will continue. Okay, has everybody voted? Because we're closing the voting now. Everybody has voted? Okay, so we now move into the other matters. If you have questions, please just hold them. We just need to get the other formal matters through. Everybody would have received their annual report. If you turn to page 87, you will have seen our audited accounts. So audit accounts for the year ending 31st, 2019 forms a part of the annual report. And this was also circulated. I therefore now invite the auditor's representative from KPMG, Ms. Sharon Thomas Brown, to come forward to read the auditor's report for 2019. Is there anybody who has not voted?
If it's okay with
Is it okay with all members?
Yes.
Yes,
Good afternoon, everyone. To the members of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, report on the audit of the financial statements. Opinion. We have audited the financial statements of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, the organization, set out on pages 91 to 123, which comprise the statement of financial position as at December 31st, 2019, the statements of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, changes in equity and cash flows for the year then ended, and notes comprising significant accounting policies and other explanatory information. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements give a true and fair view of the financial position of the organization as at December 31st, 2019, and its financial performance and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with the International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, and the Jamaican Companies Act. Basis for our opinion. We conducted our audit in accordance with international standards on auditing, ISOs. Our responsibilities under those standards are further described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of the financial statement section of our report. We are independent of the organization in accordance with the International Ethics Standard Board for Accountants, International Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, including International Independent Standards, IESB code, and we have fulfilled our other ethical responsibilities in accordance with the IESB code. We believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. And let me just close. Report on additional matters as required by the Jamaican Companies Act. We have obtained all the information and explanations which, to the best of our knowledge and belief, were necessary for the purposes of our audit. In our opinion, proper accounting records have been maintained so far as appears from our examination of those records and the financial statements, which are in agreement therewith, give the information required by the Jamaican Companies Act in the manner required. KPMG Chartered Accountants, Kingston, Jamaica, November 18, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. And we'll now invite our treasurer, our honorary treasurer, Mr. Vikram Dam, who will now summarize the accounts for us.
Thank you, Greta. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, right, appropriate music for that. But before we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge the president for listening to me. You know, just like any good accountant, it's always great to see that you can pass on the work to somebody else at no cost to you. So mission accomplished. But, you know, when we started our work last year, it was a pretty dire situation on the roads. And so Keith took it on, and a lot of work has been done, and I'd also like to acknowledge Commander Overton to lead that part for us. So hopefully we'll kind of reach a stage where, you know, driving on the roads, even though the last few months has been pretty quiet for everybody, is going to be safe again for all of us. So thank you very much. Now on to the accounts. The big dip that you see at the end of the graph is 2019 numbers. The deficit was driven by a couple of things. We had a few redundancies during 2019. We had a change of CEO, and then we had IFRS 9, which none of us still understand, but it is what it is. 2020, though, we managed to turn the corner back again. It's a small surplus, and I expect that surplus to hold. The main reason for that is that we kept our collections up this year, despite some very challenging circumstances for all our members. So I'd like to thank everybody who paid up their membership. There are a few people we still have to collect from, but I'm quite sure we'll get there by the end of the year. The top graph actually shows you income. The bottom part of the top graph, which is in white, is subscription income. There's a slight dip, but I expect that to hold and to 2019 numbers, maybe a slightly higher number from 2019. But the big dip that we saw was really in the other income. As you know, we've hardly had any social events or any activities during the course of the year except for some virtual events. That has really hit us hard. But we managed to keep our expenses under control, and I'm going to talk about that as we go along. So the proportion of subscription income, obviously, this year has been much higher. The good news for me, at least, is that we've been able to sustain ourselves in terms of breaking even and even generating a small profit with just a large percentage of our income coming only from subscription revenue. So that's the good news. So next year, when we start getting back into doing our events, hopefully things will be much better than what we are seeing in 2020. The sources, nothing has changed really. The main source remains member subscriptions, and I expect that to kind of stay that way for the next few years until we develop our own building, and then things hopefully will change at that point. Expenses. 2019, we had some one-off expenses, severance payments. Like I said, we had a couple of changes of CEOs, salary increases have been made. We maintained cost of living increases in within the salary basis for all our staff. And Greta has, very ably filled the position for CEO temporarily. So, cost management, Tracy's team has done a great job with that. The solar system that we had in place continues to save us a lot of money, despite the fact that electricity rates are up this year due to devaluation. Our financial position remains strong. We had increased receivables in 2019 and going into 2020. We've managed to collect most of those. About $42.6 million of special project funds are still being held, and I think we're going to repay some of that back this year because some of those projects that we had anticipated are not going to take place, I think, and our cash position remains. I have reasonable over here because I'd like to really see it much stronger. But for now, we are okay. This is another accountant laughing over there. So the building project, we did a lot of work this year, and again, thanks to the president, we got some additional funding to do a couple of very key pieces of work. One is we kind of came up with a schematic for the building. So the first set of drawings was 5 floors and 2 floors of parking below the ground. In my enthusiasm, I thought, we could actually put up that 5 floors. So the first set of drawings came up with that, but it was really overbuilt. And so we had to scale back. So we now have 4 floors, about 7,000 square feet each. And I'll show you some schematics just after I finish. And it looks, in my mind at least, and the feedback from the officers is also that it looks great if we can get to that design. We'll have 2 floors of parking. So we should be able to, have something much nicer than what we have. Imiga will come into a, hopefully a much nicer building than what she's seeing just now. We've sent out RFPs to 6 real estate developers, hoping to get back at least initial responses by the end of the year. so that we can start negotiating to build hopefully by mid next year. We did some soil tests, so we have no issues from that perspective. You know, the area can take the building design that we're thinking about. And we had sent the design to NEPA, and the DSC has indicated that they have no significant issues and have asked us to put forward a formal proposal for approval. So that will start taking place over the next few months. Terry, you're going to put up the schematic for me, please. Yeah, okay. Yeah, perfect. So this is the basement parking, 63 spots. The idea really is that we'll have the two parking levels will be independent of each other. So one side, the basement, you'll enter from the Arden Road side. The ground floor parking will enter from the Hope Road side. Okay, so what that does is actually allows us more parking because we don't have to create some space for ramps that connect the two parking levels. And then these are just the schematics for the 4 floors. The first 3 are pretty similar, about 7,000 square feet each. Okay, the top floor, which is the one that I'm hoping that we'll keep for ourselves, is about 6,000 square feet with 1,400 square feet of terrace space, which we can modify into a lime area, have all the all the events that all the RR members and the PSOJ holds can be held over there, instead of us doing it in different places. Maybe a little restaurant, things like that. And this is what the building hopefully will look like. The architect is Synergy Design Studio, Bruce Lopez. Very modern looking. This is the view from Hope Road. This is the view from Arden Road. And another look. So this is what we are hoping that we'll get some responses from a couple of good developers. We've sent it to the top firms in Jamaica, so I'm quite sure we'll get a good set of responses on this. And the financial model which we have developed shows that, as I had indicated in my last report last year, that if we keep the entire building, obviously over the long term, it is going to be the most value maximizing for us. But if we sell, we'll be able to generate more cash for the association. So as the proposals come in, we'll kind of have to make that decision as to what it is that we do in terms of what amount of space that we want to keep for ourselves versus sell to the developer. Okay, that's it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. So, ladies and gentlemen, members, you notice a lot of things are happening. We're so excited. I don't see the excitement on your face, though, but we are all excited with all the things happening. I know it's time. So now we have to actually pass the resolutions for reports. So a motion in order for the acceptance and approval of the reports as presented, and this being Resolution 2 on the notice of the meeting. Can someone from the floor move the motion? Thank you very much. And the motion, let me repeat, that the report of the President for September 26, 2019 to November 30, 2020, the Executive Committee and the audited accounts for the year January 1, 2019 to December 31, 2019, and the auditor's report thereon be and are hereby adopted. Can I have a second? Thank you. I put this resolution to vote. Those in favor? Thank you. Those against? None. In terms of, oh, sorry, there was one. Yeah, it was George and Eleanor. George and Eleanor. Okay, and then now appointment of our auditors. We'll now move a resolution, and that was resolution number 5 in our notice of the meeting, and that resolution states that the Executive Committee of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica be and are hereby authorized to issue a request for proposal for audit services, select and approve the remuneration and terms of engagement of the external auditors for the period ending December 31st, 2020. So we'll ask a member to second that motion. Thank you very much. That looks like Greg, yes. And we'll now ask members again to indicate their agreement by indicating those in favor. Those against? None. Okay, so the elections are now closed, and we are finalizing the tally of the votes. And as you all know, Crime Stop is one very important project for us. And Sandra is here with us just to give you a quick update on what's happening with Crime Stop, and then we will announce who are the new members for council. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, PSOJ members, those in the room and those online. I hope we still have people with us online. I'm pleased to be here this afternoon on behalf of the members of the board of the National Crime Prevention Fund, which is also known as Crime Stop. In the limited time that we have available, I'm going to crave your indulgence and stay with me, please. I'd like to just remind you of who we are, what we have done, what are some of the strategies that we are employing to fulfill our mission, and some help we need from you to make, to support or to sustain our program. For those of you who may be unaware, Crime Stop was started 31 years ago under the leadership of the then president, the Honorable Gordon Booth Stewart. Our vision is to be the preferred channel for citizens to use in reporting crime, and our mission is to detect, reduce, and prevent crime through offering a secure avenue for citizens to give information anonymously on all forms of crime. One of our strengths is that we are so closely aligned with the PSOJ. It's not just our parent, but we have received continuing support from the organization and its members over these past 31 years. And also our strength is that we are not a part of the JCF, although the JCF is a vital partner of ours. One of our weaknesses, though, is the low level of awareness among particularly the youth population, which is the demographic that makes up most of the perpetrators and even victims of crime and violence. Admittedly, our marketing communication program has been weak and unappealing for some time. And with the rising incidence of crime, we have an opportunity to step up our game and become a more effective catalyst for reducing crime across the island. And in terms of threats, I think it's important to note that in our 31 years of existence, not one tipster has ever been compromised. We're proud of that fact, and we guard that status jealously. So this is our strategy map, which guides the work of our board and management. We have a strategic plan for 2018 to 2020, which we are now reviewing for another 3 years. But you can see that we have some well-defined strategies in terms of our financial status, to achieve financial sustainability, enlist corporate partners, generate revenues to improve our rewards, and strategies with respect to our stakeholders, our internal processes, and learning and growth of our people. For a not-for-profit charitable organization with one full-time paid staff member, and I just want to acknowledge our manager, Mrs. Sharice Bruce Douglas, and a 14-member staff complement, which is funded by the JCF, Crime Stop has made a significant impact in the fight against crime. We could be doing better, though. This chart illustrates the tips that we have received over the last 10 years compared to major crimes that have been committed. Crimes that include murder, rape, robbery, and shooting. As you can see, when there's a rise in major crime rates, there's a rise in tips as well, received by Crime Stop. And if you look at the graph on the left, Crime Stop has received a steady stream of tips over the last 10 years, with an average of 849 tips received each year. And in terms of successes, we have had a total of 1,097, of which 684 were arrests over the past decade. To add some color to this, over the 10-year period, Tips to Crime Stop assisted in the seizure of over $347 million worth of narcotics and the recovery of over $86 million worth of property. Of the successes achieved, Crime Stop paid out more than $26 million in rewards over this 10-year period. The largest being in 2019, when $8.3 million was paid, of which $6.5 million was for the seizure of illegal weaponry. This graph shows our financial performance. Our income has primarily come from special contributions from our partners and our fundraising efforts. And our operational expenses are really salaries for our manager, the salary for our manager and rewards, and some expenses to host our fundraising events. But in the last 3 years, our surplus has been on a gradual decline, primarily due to increased operational costs and the loss of a key funder, Flow. Last year, as you can see, we ended the year with a loss of $5.7 million. But our capital reserves, even though they've been waning, but at the end of 2019, we had reserves of $22 million. Partnerships have always been the lifeblood of Crime Stop. Early in our history, we raised funds through cause marketing campaigns in which businesses supported our cause through donations of various kinds. And we go back many years to programs like with National Fuel, which made donations for every liter of fuel sold. Now, in the last several years, we have had some strong partnerships, although Lime Now Flow was our partner for 13 years, but in 2018 that ended, and this was a huge loss for us. And for the last 12 years, NCB has provided an annual cash grant. Last year, in response to our appeal for a longer-term commitment, they renewed their support for another 3 years to end in 2022. Last year, we had a fundraising breakfast, and we made an appeal for this longer-term support. We have not been very successful in getting companies to sign on. But we have individual partnership agreements for various services with JPS for electricity theft, with the Insurance Association, with the BGLC, the Ministry of Agriculture for rewards for prédial larceny, JUTC for rewards for vandalizing vehicles, and we have a current MOU with the Ministry of National Security, which we are about to renew for rewards for guns and ammunition. And Crime Stop International has supported us as well. I just want to acknowledge the help that we have received this year from a number of companies. Our retired manager, Prudence Gentles, has been reaching out to members to raise funds for us. And so far, she has raised a total of $3.6 million. So we want to thank National Baking Company, CariMed, Jerry and Nephew, First Caribbean International Bank, Guardian Life, Ravers Limited, and CRIF International Bureau for their donations. We also acknowledge Guardian Group for paying the subscription for our tip management software. We've had some ideas for diversifying our portfolio, like an employee integrity line. So for companies that don't have their own whistleblower systems, we would provide that. Brand partnership, like the one we have had with JPS to report electricity theft, for example. Information sharing, and we have a current partnership with BGLC, in which we have actually received a number of tips and which have led to the arrest and charge of 17 persons and seizure of about $372,000 in cash and a large quantity of illegal cash pot papers. Now, I said earlier that one of our weaknesses is our marketing communications campaign. For the last 11 months or so, Commissioner Anderson and I, supported by Charisse, have been planning to strengthen our partnership with a project we call Stand Up for Our Country. And I want to acknowledge Kimala Bennett from the lab and her team, and Alicia Gentles from the Multicare Youth Foundation, who have been working with us to develop this project. We all know the context. Crime has been a big problem for us in Jamaica. So this project is really looking at how we can tackle acts of crime through 3 strategies: reclaiming spaces within communities, repositioning Crime Stop and the police as sources of support and trust, and reimagining and redefining what good citizenship means. The project will have 3 components. We're going to have a multifaceted multimedia campaign. We're going to execute the campaign using various media, and we're also going to have an underground campaign involving interventions with young people. Now, we do have a communication challenge. We need to subvert the informer for dead culture, and we want to represent what it means to be a good Jamaican citizen. We want to leverage the social capital that we have. And I think we have considerable social capital, and we want to expand the social capital of the JCF. And we want to make sure that this communication is happening in parallel spaces, both digitally and underground. The campaign is really based on really addressing these 2 elements, 2 emotions among our citizens. One is a fear of losing what matters, and we want them to feel repulsed by crime. And, I should say that in developing this campaign, we had a number of consultations, and a very interesting one with Keith and Michael Leachin, who felt very strongly about this idea of ensuring that we make this a part of the campaign to get people repulsed against crime because it affects their chances of getting a job, could be a family member, and for businesses, all of us are at risk. And on the other hand, protecting who and what we love. So these are the bases on which we have developed the campaign. This is a strategic framework. And, in terms of being repulsed, we want to get the message across. This is not the country we want to live in. We're all under threat. We want to reclaim the spaces that are occupied by the dons, and we want to make sure that everybody understands that there are rewards to be gained from their participation. A safer country is our greatest reward, and we can live without fear, and there's money that you can also earn from reporting crime. We want to do it in 3 phases, and the focus will be both on the public perception and the branding of both Crime Stop and the JCF. We're looking at target audiences. Here are some young men, Damien and crew, and we have some of the characteristics of these target groups. You know, Marva, who is a mother, wants the best for her children. Sasha, a young woman who wants to be loyal to her boyfriend. She probably has a boyfriend who is involved in criminal activities. She's on all of the social media channels. So we want to use a number of media channels to reach our target audiences, to maximize our reach and awareness. And I just want to give you a little flavor of what the campaign might look like. We've been working on it. And it's really aimed at encouraging citizens to recognize the power they have in making the country, Jamaica, the country we all want to live in. So we must take our homeland from out of the hands of criminals. You know, reclaim our land, Jamaica land we love. So this is phase 1. We want to use influencers. So we'll have graphics like these, community billboards, you know, appeal to the nationalistic aesthetic with our colors. In the second phase, seamlessly bring in the police, because they are people too, and they have a job to play. This is sort of some ideas we want to, it won't be that, but just a reference, repositioning the police as humans. They're real people with an extraordinary task. Here's another reference that will show the duality of the police force, humanize them, and then, you know, for their connection to the community. Here's another reference, what the JCF stands for. They stand for safety and the love of Jamaica. So in the third phase, some press, we want to then bring in the Crime Stop and get across that, you know, this is a face. He's not just a number. He's your son, your brother, your, you know, boyfriend, right? We want to assure anonymity. That's, you know, part of the social capital that we bring, and use the messaging like WhatsApp that everybody is on. Get our young people to control the online digital geographies, and have influencers who are going to, you know, speak about what they stand for. Here is a case study from California that we think is effective, and in fact, as everybody knows, we've been doing a lot of murals downtown. We want to have murals depicting young people having good relationships with the police and place these in communities. We have some goals. We want to increase tips received by Crime Stop by 30%. I'm using 1,035 as the baseline. Increase the seizures of illegal firearms by 95%, and implement programming that's going to benefit at least 100 high-risk youth. We have an indicative budget. We have been meeting with a number of funding agencies. Principal among those is the Ministry of National Security, with whom we have an MOU. And what we have done is that MOU was originally $100 million. I think we have used about $15 million of it so far. We are behind our goal in spending the money, and we think that if we have a campaign, an effective campaign, we can give out more rewards. So we have asked the ministry to set aside $15 million of that fund to fund the campaign, which is expected, the whole project, which is expected to cost about $26 million. The ministry has already signaled to us that they may not be able to meet that $15 million ask. So we are going to have to rely more on the private sector. And as I said, we are working hard to find some grants. The EU has signaled that they would support the project next year. The funds won't come in until mid-year next year. So our appeal to you, members, is for support. I'm ending this with this quote from the Honorable Justice Michael Tuller, who was a guest speaker at our 30th anniversary banquet last year. And I think we all are familiar with the statistics, the impact that we could have on our economic growth if we are able to get a handle on crime and violence. So I want to thank you very much for staying and listening. And Cherise, have you passed those out already, Cherise? Yes? So we have some pledge cards. We are really desperate for your support to ensure the sustainability of this program, which has really contributed a lot to reducing crime and violence. So we hope that you will make a pledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sandra, and the hard-working team of Crime Stop. I mean, they've done lots of work, but friends, they can only do more work with your help. And the pledge cards are out, so we ask you, please, please, dig deep and see how we can help Crime Stop. I also just want to recognize that we've had 28 members online sharing with us, and they've really sent through some real great comments. Well done, PSOJ. Great work. Very attractive building, Mr. Treasurer. We're looking forward to that one. Are there any urgent questions before I announce who are the new council members? I know you have heard a lot and we've kept you over time, but are there any burning questions? Okay, Mr. President, officers, you all did an excellent job. So, it's time to announce our new council members. And let me go first with the associations. So, as indicated by our secretary, we had 13 nominations, and we have 12 persons who have been elected to council. And the associations are the Business Processing Industry Association of Jamaica, the Council of Voluntary Social Services, the Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Jamaica, Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League, Jamaica Customer Service Association, Jamaica Developers Association, the Medical Association of Jamaica, the MSME Alliance, Small Business Association of Jamaica, the Sugar Manufacturing Corporation of Jamaica, and the United Way. Congratulations to all of our associations on being elected to council. We now move to our corporate. And as the secretary indicated, we had 80 nominations and 10 spaces. And those who have been elected are Bank of Nova Scotia Jamaica Limited, Citi, Continental Baking Company Limited, Choco Caribbean Adventures, Grace Kennedy Limited, Jamaica Money Market Brokers Limited, Jamaica Producers Group Limited, Red Stripe Company Limited, Sagicor Group Jamaica Limited, and Wisynco Group Limited. Congratulations to all our corporate members, and you have lots of work, as you know. So members, we are coming to the close. No, and I just want to first of all invite all the newly elected members to council meeting. And it's very important that you attend council meeting, and as many of our other members know, that it will be at the council meeting that we will be electing a new president, vice presidents, and also treasurer. So it's very important that all our members of council turn up. Our meeting is going to be held on Thursday, December the 3rd, because, you know, we want to make sure we get this over done very quickly. And, of course, for the first time, based on our resolutions, we can now, Mr. McDonald, have a virtual meeting. For those of you who want to join at the PSOJ, you are welcome. But we will now be able to do voting electronically, and we will have our council meeting, which is slated for Thursday, December the 3rd. And once the executive is elected, they will have a meeting the following Tuesday. So it's business that we have to conduct very quickly. Now, are there any other matters that can be appropriately dealt with at this annual general meeting? Is there any other issue anybody would like to raise? Yes, Mr. President.
Well, today is a special day, and it's the birthday of Jackie Sharp. Yay! Happy birthday. So Greta, you get to sing happy birthday. Greta, you have to sing happy birthday.
Well, you know, in the Jamaican way, we sing happy birthday, Miss Lou style. So, happy birthday to you, dear Jackie, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you, dear Jackie, happy birthday. God's blessings, Jackie. And thanks for staying with us. So, friends, it's been a long afternoon. And yes, we have come to the end. And yes, I need a motion to close. But I also want to tell you, we have actually packaged some light refreshment for you outside so that you can leave with the light refreshment package for you. So can I get a motion from the floor for the termination of our, boy, so many hands so quickly. Thank you very much, Tracy. You picked up who the hands are. And we really, really want to thank you on behalf of the President and the Officer Corps. We really want to thank you. We had a real great turnout, I must tell you, in face-to-face and also online. So thank you all very much. You will be hearing from us again shortly. God bless and safe travel and stay safe. And applause to the team who has really been working tremendously. Thank you all. Thank you. And Althea and, where are they? Look here, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you this one. It's not a president-related organization. See them lady there around the back? You know how it go, right? Can you know how to get to him? You can't get to him through Althea. Althea, Seychelles, thank you all. And thanks to the Secretariat team, really. We all put out all the effort and we delivered. Thank you, thank you, thank you all. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe. Observe your protocols. Blessings.